Good morning, class. Mrs. Tenga here. Welcome to biology. Today is November 4. Well, technically it's November 3 because I'm recording it previous night. So the class for this is for class of November 4. So for today's class, I want to make sure that you guys open the photosynthesis notes and concept checked file on Blackboard. So make sure you open that. And as we continue with the lesson, I want to make sure that everybody has access to it because there are questions there and concept checks that you need to do while we're completing this. So for this work, you need to do this independently. You need to write your words, you need to write the answers in your own words. If it's from the notes, that's fine if you use it directly, but if there's for any explanation or any concept checks, I expect you to do that independently. If I find anything plagiarized or is cheated on, that means two people are having the same exact answers on concept checks, like word per word, then I'm going to not count that work as evidence for mastery, okay? So before we start, let's make sure that we got that file. So I want you to open it and we're gonna move on, all right? So for this particular lesson, we're going to begin an introduction on photosynthesis. So let's try and figure out, what does photosynthesis mean? So before we go there, let's first think of which organisms use photosynthesis. All right. So here's my first question. I want you guys to think of what you ate last night for dinner. Okay, well, for me, it's tonight. So I want you to think, what did you guys eat last night? So I want you to write that down on your concept check, on that notes thing that I have on Blackboard. So I want you to write it. All right, so as soon as you write it, let's go and move, and let's analyze the food that we ate and where they come from and what did they eat in case it was meat. Okay, so let's go. Last night, or tonight, this is what I ate. That funny thing on the top left, that's what we call rambutan. It's a fruit, and I'm so happy they have it because that's my favorite fruit, okay? I had some matcha tea that I made at home, and I had penne pesto, okay? So I want you to think and help me out, all right? So I'm gonna nitpick each of the ones that I have on the screen. I'm going to try and figure out what type of organism they are and where they're coming from, okay? So, right here, rambutan is a plant, okay? If you look at matcha is water with matcha. Matcha is green tea. So that means this one pretty much has plant on it too, okay? Now let's look at the penne pasta, okay? Obviously, there's this green leafy thing. That's a plant, okay? Pasta, all right? Pasta is pasta. The question is this: where do pasta come from? What is it made out of? If you know where it's made, it's actually made from wheat, all right? Which is, again, a plant. So I'm going to go. Oh, oopsies. All right, let's go and write. This is from plants. I can see some cheese. That's not the picture of my food. It looked good, but this one is, professionally taken. I can see some cheese. You have this powder right here. Where is it from? Obviously, it's from the cow, right? From the milk of a cow. But what made that cow alive? It's grass. So that means if I say this is from milk, the milk comes from the cow, and the cow fed on the grass. And grass is a plant. So I want you to look at my example. So as you can see right now, you can see that pretty much everything boils down into one organism, and that's plants. All right? So based on this, you can see how important plants are. Because even if you're eating meat, whatever the meat was before, to some extent, that food came from some type of plant. So what I want you to do for the first question on that sheet is, I want you guys to write the food that you ate last night And I want you to figure out the main source, what type of organism they are. And let's try and see if you can actually figure it out and show to me that you can all boil it down to plants. All right? So let's do that. Pause the video and then go straight to that activity. All right? So now I'm going to keep going. All right? So as you can see, everything is plants. Okay? What's interesting about plants is because they are our main source of food. Whether you're an animal, whether you're a rabbit, regardless of what you are, it's the main source of food. All right? So plants are autotrophs. So this is just a review. Autotrophs are organisms that make their own food. Okay? So what that means is they don't go running around looking for food. All they need to do is go through a process for them to be able to make that food. So in this case, the autotrophs that we're looking at are plants. Plants are what we call photoautotrophs, which means they use light to help them make the food. Okay? So they just need that energy to allow the process of food making to happen. They're not actually using the energy from light to make them alive. But the presence of light allows them to make something that will keep the plant and keep all of the organisms dependent on it to be alive. Okay? All right, so let's go and look at photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a process where you have an autotroph, example will be plant, and they would make their own food in the form of carbohydrates or sugars. Okay? To do this, they need one thing. One of the most important things that plants need for the photosynthesis process to occur is light. Okay? So light will be then changed into chemical energy in the process of photosynthesis. Okay? So let's go and write down the chemical equation for photosynthesis so you know which one is the start and which one is the end. So whenever you deal with chemical equations, when you get to chemistry, you'll know about this. And I think we talked about this last week. You always have your reactants on the left. You show an arrow of where the direction of the reaction is going, and you will produce product. Okay? So the reactants in the process of photosynthesis is carbon dioxide and water. Okay, that means for the whole process of photosynthesis to occur, you need to have carbon dioxide, you need to have water, okay? And in that process, you need something to power it up, and that would be light, okay? Light enters the system. As a result, it produces sugar, which is, in this case, this is glucose, C6H12O6, plus another important thing is oxygen. Okay? So, those are your reactants and those are your products. So, if you have carbon dioxide and water, with the help of light, you can make sugar, glucose in this case, and oxygen. Alright? So, I'm going to go and balance this. Alright? So, I'm going to put a 6 in here and a 6 and another one. When we say balance, both sides have the same amount of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Okay? All right. So now that we know the importance of plants in terms of, okay, we know that plants are important for food. That's the first thing. Now, I want you to look at this chemical reaction. Okay? I want you to think of what's around you, what you're breathing in, what you're breathing out. Okay? First off, we can see the reactant is carbon dioxide. All right? Oops. All right. I can see carbon dioxide right there. I can also see that it produces oxygen. So based on those two information, now I can come up with more reasons why plants are important. So at this point, I want you to go in your notes and then answer the questions on the concept checks. What are the two main things that plants do to keep us alive? All right. So I think I mentioned 3. If you write all 3, great. If you write 2, I'll take it. Okay. So why are plants important? So answer that question. All right. And then we'll proceed. Now, There are two phases. That means there are two parts to photosynthesis. Okay, there's something we call light dependent, and the other one is light independent. I think based on the name, you should be able to already predict what they need. So let's first look at light dependent reaction. So light dependent reaction obviously depends on light. That means this particular phase or this particular portion of the reaction requires light for the process to proceed. Okay, so what it does is we're going to talk about the chloroplast in a little bit. Light energy from the sun or any source, as long as it has enough energy to provide. So if you have light energy and it's captured, the one in the cell that actually captures it is the chloroplast. The chloroplast is the main guy that absorbs this energy. So what the chloroplast would do is it would turn and convert it to a chemical energy by storing some of that energy in what we call energy carrying molecules. So we're going to be looking at two, ATP and NADPH. We've already discussed what ATP is. We're going to go through again. Go through it again just to review. And then we're going to go and introduce to you NADPH. So anyway, light dependent reaction is in the chloroplast, obviously. And this actually occurs in the, actually, I'm not going to go ahead of myself. I'm going to get there when we talk about chloroplast. So that's light dependent. It needs light, okay? Light independent reaction, as the name says, it does not need light, okay? So what's interesting is a light independent reaction uses the chemicals formed in the light dependent reaction as its power source, okay? So at the end of the process of light dependent reaction, ATP and NADPH will be formed. Those two will transfer into light independent reaction to power up the reaction. Once discharged, those discharged molecules will go back into the light dependent reaction to be recharged. All right. So let's see if I can draw that out. All right. I hope I have enough space. Actually, I'm just going to go in here and just erase everything. Okay. So we have two processes. Okay, so the two processes that we have is light dependent and light independent. So I'm going to shorten it, light dependent reaction and light independent reaction. So you got light coming in. All right, light comes in. The light will be it will be changed to become ATP or NADPH. That means the energy will be transferred, okay? Obviously, it's not like, boom, we transfer. No, it's a chemical reaction, and we're not going to go through the nitty-gritty of it because it's, I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit complicated. So, once LDR, not long-distance relationship, this is light-dependent reaction. Once the light is absorbed, it changes ADP to ATP. So, that means you have ATP right here, and you also have NADPH. Those two molecules are what's going to give the light independent reaction the energy. Once it's discharged, then the light independent reaction sends the discharged particles, which is ADP and NADP plus, back to the LDR to recharge all over again. Okay, so I hope that helped you guys figure out, okay, how is this working? So light is your main source of energy for LDR. LIR, they need the ATP and NADPH as power source from the LDR. Okay, all right. So once we go through the process of light dependent and light independent reaction, eventually we'll make what we want, glucose. So once glucose is formed, now all of your body functions can actually do their work. There's an extra step to it. We're going to talk about that in cellular respiration. But the glucose helps build things in your body, okay? It helps with making complex carbohydrates, making amino acids, and other larger molecules. And in that process of making, it's actually, to some extent, releasing some energy so your cells can power up, all right? Now, let's talk about ATP. We've talked about ATP before. Let's just revisit it. So I have ATP. This is charged. And when it becomes discharged, it becomes ADP. All right. So just to review what we've looked at before, ATP has 3 phosphates. So let's say this is A. Yeah, okay. That's the sugar part of the whole ATP structure. It's connected to 3 P's. Okay. So it's charged. The fact that there's 3 phosphates means it's charged. If I want to discharge it, all I need to do is to remove one of the phosphates. So in there, you have A, okay, you have P, P plus, P plus. Okay, is it P plus, P minus? Okay, I'm just going to put a P. So in this case, that missing P is floating around. And now the fact that there's only 2 P's now, that's when we call it discharge. If you want to charge it back, all you need to do is add the P that was missing. So P, P plus P, which means it becomes triphosphate again. And it goes back. Okay? So that is how we charge and discharge. That's how we get the energy and store energy in ATP. The other one is NADPH. It's a very long name, so I'm not going to go through it. So NADPH is charged. Okay? NADPH. This is charged the same as, what is that though? ATP. Okay? NADP plus is discharged. So let's talk about this. All right? So earlier, we talked about how ATP becomes charged if you put a phosphate. If it becomes discharged when you put when you remove the phosphate. So how about NADPH? So for NADPH, I think the easiest way to explain this is by drawing a car. My husband's an Uber driver, so I'm going to use Uber as an example. So think of NADP plus an empty car. So I have a car. Apologize to drawing. I'm not the best drawer when it comes to this. All right. So I have a car. The car can carry 3 passengers. I have 1, 2, and C. 3. This is NADP plus because it's empty. Okay? It's discharged. There's no energy. So, as what most taxis and most Ubers would do is they're gonna go, it's not Uber Eats, so what they're gonna do is go to the passenger and pick them up. So NADP plus can carry 3 passengers. The 3 passengers it can carry is 2 electrons and a hydrogen ion. Okay, so what NADP plus is going to do is it's going to go to the station. All right, so this is the station of LDR. Light dependent reaction, and there you have 2 electrons and hydrogen waiting for the car, which is NADP plus. So it goes in there and be like, yay, all right, let's go ride the car. So on the way, what it's gonna look like now is bye-bye. All right, oops, maybe I should not do that. So as a result, you now have a car fully loaded, because now we have filled all of the passenger seat. So I have electron, and hydrogen. Okay? So this is now, it's not an ADP plus anymore. It's now NADPH. So when we say that NADPH is charged, what that means, it's just full of passengers. Okay? Now, how do we release that? Well, we go to the light-independent reaction to remove those things. So once the light-independent reaction receives that Uber car to 2 electrons, and the hydrogen will be dropped off. As a result, it goes back to NADP plus. So this is the process of how NADP plus is charged and how NADPH is discharged. So I'm hoping that the analogy with a car and passengers help you guys out with understanding the whole process. Okay? All right. So This, guys, is where the process of photosynthesis happens. Only organisms that photosynthesize have chloroplast. So chloroplasts are found in the leaves, okay? So if we look at the structure, we have a couple of structures inside of the chloroplast, like it's not small enough, okay? We have the thylakoids, which are small, tiny little mentos. I call it mentos because they look like that shape. All right, so they're small, tiny little things, and they're inside of the chloroplast. Now, when you put and pile all of those mentoses together, we call them a grana, okay? Granum, singular. So, the stroma, which is outside of those are the outside of the mentos, okay? So let me see if I can find something. Let's check my okay, here we go. Nope, I can't say anything. All right. Oh, they're money. Okay. So let's say they're not the same, guys. Anyway, all right. Let's assume these two coins are the same. We're gonna assume, yeah. So I have this mentos and another mentos. Let's assume they're the same. So this inside is what we call the thylakoid. This whole structure is the thylakoid, the same thing here. So if you stack them, that's what we call a granum. Okay? If you have multiple stacks, that's called a grana. Anything outside of the thylakoid are what we call the stroma. This is all part of the chloroplast. So if you look here, there is a picture on your handout. It looks like the one on the top right. So that's the structure of the chloroplast. It's very small. It's smaller than the cell itself. And inside, this is where your process of LDR and LIR happens. Okay? So light-dependent reaction happens in the thylakoid. Okay? And the light-independent reaction happens in the stroma. So next week, we're going to talk about those two reactions. And we're going to try and see if we can create a story out of it so it's easier to remember. Okay? So this is your chloroplast, which is important. But what makes the chloroplast be able to absorb all of this light energy? Okay? That is the job of a pigment. So pigments are found inside of your chloroplast. Okay? Inside of the thylakoid specifically. So these pigments are light absorbing. So that means they absorb light. All right. Now, pigments will normally just absorb specific colors. And if it's not absorbed, then it will reflect it. So if you look here, green. Why are plants or why are leaves green? Okay. I'm going to explain it in a bit. All right. So as I mentioned, pigments, they absorb some light. And they do not, or they reflect some of the light. So we have three major types. Obviously, there's more, but this is the only ones I want to focus on. We have chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B. Chlorophyll A and B cannot absorb green. They will absorb any color except green. Carotenoids, though, they absorb everything except the yellows and the reds. Okay? So when we're dealing with light, okay, white light, or the light from the sun, it's actually a plethora of colors. The light from the sun, actually, if you break it apart, you're going to see something like this. GBIF. I'm not sure if you've heard that when you're in elementary or middle school, but ROGBIV means red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So if you look at the light from the sun, all of them 7 colors are actually present. But you just can't see them, all right? So if you look at this chart, chlorophyll A and chlorophyll B, they're absorbing pretty much everything except this guy, all right? Now, when you go to look at carotenoids, pretty much everything is absorbed except this side, okay? So as a result, when you look at the plant, depending on what pigment they have, that's actually the color. For example, let's go to the picture of the leaf. Why are leaves green? Leaves are green because they have chloroplast A and B. Chloroplast A and B absorb all colors except green. Because green is reflected, it goes straight to your eye. That's why you see green. So for any type of color or any type of thing that you see, a color, That means everything is absorbed except the color that you see. So if you look at a carrot, why is a carrot orange? The reason why carrots are orange is because it has a pigment in there that absorbs everything except orange. Okay? So if you're wearing a green shirt, why do they see green? It's because there are pigments in your clothes where it will absorb the light and they will bounce some of the light, in this case green. Okay? So white is actually technically a color. White is the presence of all of those colors. Roy G. Biv. Black is not technically a color. Black is just the absence of all 7 colors in the wave. It's called the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, we're not gonna go through there. Okay, all right. So those are your pigments. Okay, and they create something like this. So this is important because if your plants don't have the pigments, how are they gonna absorb all of the energy from the sun? It needs to be stored so it can be transferred. All right, so that's pretty much all I have for lecture. So here is an interesting thing that's going to happen. I'm going to explain to you guys what you need to do. All right, so the first thing I need you to do is to make sure that you finish that worksheet on the lecture. Okay, all questions need to be answered and make sure that you've answered them carefully and not too rushed. Okay, when you're done, submit that on Blackboard. You're done with the first task. Now, let me go into your projects. It was very disappointing because people didn't finish their project, didn't submit the things that needed to be submitted yesterday. And so, well, yesterday as in Monday. So that means I had to make all of the other classes, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and the 8th grade, to do the elections without the videos, without the speeches, and without flyers. I think there's only 4 groups that submitted those flyers, but there are more groups than that. Okay, so right now, because there are so many missing things, all right, I will have to give you the grade that you get based on what was submitted to me. If you submit anything today, or if you send me anything today, which is Wednesday, that's really not going to count anymore because the election is finished for those grades. Your project was needed to be able to help and influence those students to vote for your organelle. So right now, some groups are not looking good. I'm just going to be honest. Okay, take note, this is for in-class students. Some of the grades are not looking good because I didn't get anything. There was no communication. I messaged people. There was no response. So I really can't do anything at this point. This is a demonstration project. You need to use your time wisely. Last Monday, people were not on task. As a result, a lot of the groups were not able to finish the things that they needed to do. And take note, this is a group project. That means if one group did not finish, the whole group suffers with it. So we need to work on how to figure out a way that each of the individual in the group are doing their work. Okay? It's not fair for one person or 2 people in the group to be doing everything, and everything is not done. So next time, I'm not going to do what I'm going to do right now. But at this point, I'm a redemptive teacher. But this is the last time I'm going to do this because I want to make sure that at least you submit something and you pass, okay? So to those of you whose projects are not completed, individually, each person in your group can still do the opinion paper. It's literally the same paper that was done by those who are online. So if you guys are online, you're done if you submitted it. If not, you still need to submit it. So to kind of help your grade to go up, I want to make sure that you guys know what is expected. You can write an opinion paper on the organelle you were given. But you can't go to anyone to ask, oh, what was our organelle doing? Because if you were working with your group, you should know what your organelle is doing. All right? So do this independently. You can't be asking your group mate, what? Can you tell me what it's doing? No. You have to figure that by yourself. So if you're part of the group and you are working with the group, that means it should be a non-issue because you know what the information is. If you don't, then you have now the extra work of doing research to go and support why your organelle is the best. You need to go and compare that to some of the organelles. I'll say compare your organelle to about 3 organelles to prove to me, to understand why the function of your organelle is the best. All right? So this is due at the end of the class period. I mean, not the class period. I'm going to set the deadline by tonight, but I want you to work on it in class. Stay on task. I put notes on your separator glass thingamajig to stay on task. If you guys are not on task, Mr. Rivera will take you and talk to you. And if you still don't follow through, he'll give you 2 warnings and that's it. He'll send me the names. All right. And I will go straight and I will have to put infraction because you're not following this up. Okay. So expectations are high now because last Monday it was not good. People were not doing their work. So I'm going to go and just follow through with my routine. You need to do the work. You need to stay on task. I don't want to see Mr. Nihel will make sure that students are not standing up, walking around, looking for answers. You do that by yourself. This is not, if you take somebody's work and you use it for yours, that's their learning, not yours. Okay? Now, you have a cell structure quiz that was supposed to be given to you guys last week on Wednesday. We moved it to Monday, nothing happened because of all the issues with the project not being finished. So, I'm going to give you a deadline. I'm going to give you a deadline of taking this quiz, closed notes, no later than Friday. So what that means, the quiz needs to be done by Friday. Okay? No notes again. All right? So this is the animal and the plant cell. It's already on Blackboard, guys. It's already on Blackboard. So that's all we need. That's all I have to do. That's your to-do list today. Make sure you check mark them. Make sure everything is done. I'm very strict with a deadline. The fact that I'm giving you a chance to do an opinion paper to raise your grade up is a grace for you guys. Next time, deadline is deadline. If you don't submit your work after the deadline, I'm not gonna count it. Okay? So stay focused. Don't get distracted. Don't distract others. Do not plagiarize. That means don't copy things online and use it like it's your own. And please don't cheat. All right. So that is all for today. Start working on all of those tasks. And I will see you guys on field day on Friday. All right. God bless and have a great day.